is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
(1:15). This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Romesh Piris, read by Soundithavam. The COVID vaccination drive continues amid the Biden administration's pledge for more vaccines for Sri Lanka. The University of Sri Javadnapura establishes rapid low-cost nanopore sequencing for the first time in Sri Lanka. The price of the domestic LPG cylinders to remain unchanged despite an increase in fuel prices. The Agriculture Minister proposes a new Fertiliser Act to replace the existing one. The no-confidence motion against the Minister of Energy handed over to the Speaker. Non-biodegradable lunch sheets to be banned. In international news, the US and Western allies impose new sanctions on Belarus. In sports cricket, India and New Zealand frustrated again by weather as Day 4 is washed out at the World Test Championship final in Southampton. The Epidemiology Unit of the Ministry of Health said 26,273 individuals have been administered COVID-19 vaccination jabs during the course of the day yesterday. 12,935 persons were administered the second jab of the Chinese-manufactured Sinopharm vaccine, while 6,358 individuals were given the first vaccine dose. 6,848 persons were also inoculated with the first jab of the Russian Sputnik V vaccine dose, while 132 individuals were administered the second dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine. According to the Epidemiology Unit, 842,183 persons have been fully vaccinated thus far with either the Sputnik V, Sinopharm or Covishield vaccine doses. Meanwhile, the Biden administration in the United States yesterday pledged more COVID vaccines for Sri Lanka. The vaccines will be part of the approximately 16 million allocated for Asia. The White House announced last night. The genomic sequencing facility of the Allergy, Immunology and Cell Biology Unit at the Department of Immunology and Molecular Medicine in the University of Sri Javadnapura has added nanopore sequencing technology to their sequencing facility. This unit has been instrumental in carrying out SARS-CoV-2 sequencing in the country so far since the onset of the COVID-19 outbreak in Sri Lanka in March 2020. The addition of the nanopore sequencing technology will enable the AICBU to ramp up the capacity of sequencing of the SARS-CoV-2 genome significantly at this crucial point of the outbreak in Sri Lanka. The Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to amend the Sri Lanka Telecommunication Act. The cabinet paper tabled by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has proposed amendments to the bill to empower the Sri Lanka Telecommunication Regulatory Commission. Although the Department of the Legal Draftsman has formulated fundamental drafts for the amendment of the Act through the new cabinet paper, officials will be required to bring further amendments to cater to contemporary requirements. Meanwhile, the government has decided to restructure the liquefied petroleum gas industry of Sri Lanka. Measures will be taken based on the recommendations made by the Cabinet Subcommittee headed by the Minister of Trade, Bandula Gunawardena. Accordingly, a committee consisting of experts in the relevant fields, including representatives of the Litro Gas Company and Loves Gas Company, will be appointed to carry out the procurement, transportation and storage affairs related to the purchase of the required LP gas for the country. The Cabinet of Ministers has decided not to increase the price of a 12.5 kilogram cylinder of domestic liquefied petroleum gas. The Cabinet spokesman, Minister Kelia Rambukwella, confirmed this a short while ago. Accordingly, the 12.5 kilogram cylinder of domestic LP gas will continue to be sold at the usual price of 1,493 rupees. Moreover, the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval for a proposal to import 100,000 metric tons of rice. The proposal tabled by the Minister of Trade, Bandula Gunawardena, was approved during yesterday's weekly cabinet meeting. The Trade Ministry in a statement said the move to import rice was taken since prices of rice variants in the local market have increased steeply due to arbitrary decisions taken by producers and traders. The Minister of Agriculture has proposed the enactment of a new act to replace the Fertilizer Act No. 68 of 1988 by incorporating provisions to meet the present need. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to strengthen the existing legal framework to formalise fertilizer management and regulation appropriately. The Cabinet paper states necessary steps have been taken under the national policy framework of the President to implement the use of organic fertilizer in the entire country. Accordingly, new regulations will be enacted on the production, preparation, importation and distribution of fertilizer and relevant matters. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
Get your EPF loan information and service details via SMS from HDFC Bank.
The motion of no confidence signed by the Samagi Jana Balavegya against the Minister of Energy Udaya Gammanpilla over the recent fuel price hike was handed over to Speaker Mahindayappa Abeyewardena this morning. The Chief Opposition Whip, Lakshman Kiriyalla, handed over the no confidence motion against Minister Udaya Gammanpilla to the Speaker. The Parliament convened at 10 a.m. this morning under the patronage of Speaker Mahindayappa Abeyewardena. Digital Technology and Enterprise Development State Minister Namal Rajapaksa says the government is targeting providing integrated communication facilities and internet access throughout the country while erecting communication towers that comply with the national plan within 2 years. Addressing the media, he said, it is important to rectify the issue by erecting communication towers according to the national plan. The State Minister further said that as a pilot program, the construction of communication towers in the Ratnapura district has already begun and plans are underway to erect 49 communication towers in the Kurunegala district within the next few weeks. Moreover, the government is to update and build communication towers within 10 districts, including Matara, by the end of this year. That's local news.
Now, get your EPF loan information and service details via SMS from HDFC Bank. Wherever you are, being a state and private sector employee, to obtain EPF loan information and service details, just send a SMS mentioning EPF space, name and region to 0718 800 999. HDFC Bank, the bank for your home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Sri Lanka has once again drawn its attention towards banning the use of non-biodegradable lunch sheets. Accordingly, the Minister of Environment, Mahinda Amaravira, has issued directives to officials to ban the use of all types of lunch sheets. In 2017, the then Good Governance government took preliminary steps to ban the use of lunch sheets. The Environment Minister said the local producers consented to comply with the regulation and produce only biodegradable material. However, since the measure was not successful, Minister Amaravira has taken steps to completely ban the use of lunch sheets. Accordingly, the Gazette notification has already been issued and the directive to enforce the ban is in force. That came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Election Law Reforms has extended the deadline granted to recognised political parties to submit proposals on reforms related to election laws and the electoral system until the 15th of July. Accordingly, the chairman of the Select Committee, Leader of the House, Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, requested the relevant political parties to direct proposals in writing on or before the deadline. That came to you in Watchlight. Moving on to world news, in the headlines, the US and Western allies impose new sanctions on Belarus. India administers record jabs under new policy. The UNESCO says the Great Barrier Reef should be put on a list of World Heritage Sites that are in danger. The United States and its Western allies have announced new sanctions against Belarus over the forced landing of a passenger plane in May. The move is in response to the forcible action by President Alexander Lukashenko's administration. Belarusian authorities detained dissident journalist Roman Petrosevich, who was on board. The US announced that it added 16 Belarusian individuals, including Lukashenko's aides and 5 entities, to its sanction list. Their property in the United States has been blocked and transactions with Americans are prohibited. The European Union, Britain and Canada also announced similar sanctions on Monday. India has launched a new vaccine drive, announcing a record 8 million jabs on the first day of the program. The new policy sees the federal government buying COVID-19 jabs from manufacturers and supplying to states. India is one of the largest vaccine makers in the world, but its own vaccination drive has been moving at a slow pace. To scale up the vaccination drive, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced earlier this month that everyone would get free vaccines from yesterday. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization says the Great Barrier Reef should be put on a list of World Heritage Sites that are in danger over harm caused by climate change. The UN's cultural body says the world's biggest coral reef system should be downgraded to the list at a meeting next month. It is urging Australia to take accelerated action on global warming, but the Australian government said it would strongly oppose the recommendation. The latest row is part of an ongoing dispute between the UNESCO and the Australian government over the status of the reef, which gained World Heritage ranking in 1981. Back to the headlines of the world news. The US and Western allies impose new sanctions on Belarus. India administers record jabs under new policy. And the UNESCO says the Great Barrier Reef should be put on a list of World Heritage Sites that are in danger. On to development news, the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing announced that the construction of the 4th car park has commenced at Abdul Kadamawat in Colombo 11 as part of a program to construct 12 new car parks to ease traffic congestion in Colombo. The construction of this car park, with a facility to park 450 vehicles, has commenced on the instructions of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The minister said construction work on the 3 car parks in Colombo Fort and Narayanpeta is currently underway. That's development news, and on to sports. It's cricket. India and New Zealand were frustrated by the weather again, as another day of the World Test Championship final was completely washed out by rain. Only 141.1 overs have been possible so far, with New Zealand currently 101 for 2, trailing India by 116 runs. A reserve 6 days in place, so 2 days remain, but a draw is now the clear favourite for the inaugural final. Meanwhile, the International Olympics Committee said they will allow some local fans to attend when the Games open in just over a month. Organisers set a limit of 50% of capacity up to a maximum of 10,000 fans for all Olympic venues. The decision was announced after so-called 5-party talks online with local organisers, the International Olympic Committee, the International Paralympic Committee, the Japanese government and the government of Metropolitan Tokyo. That's sports news. We'll look at business news next.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Providing its dominant position once again, the nation's number 1 cable manufacturer, ACL Cables PLC, was crowned among Sri Lanka's most valuable building material brand for 2021, according to the annual index released by the Brands Finance Lanka recently. Brands Finance Lanka, the world's leading independent branded business valuation and strategy consultancy firm, declared ACL Cables as the number 1 and most valuable building material brand in Sri Lanka with a brand rating of AA. That's business news. We look at economic news next.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news. courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Sri Lanka's export sector performance has been able to manage its growth momentum in May 2021 with the challenges amidst the pandemic. As per the statistics released by the Sri Lanka Customs, Sri Lanka's merchandise exports in May 2021 was $884.2 million, an increase of 50.71% over $586.7 million in May 2020. Sri Lanka's merchandise export in January to May 2021 was $4,583.56 million, an increase of 32.61% over $3,456.32 million in January to May 2020. That's economic news.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Met Department forecasts slight change in the prevailing weather condition in the next few days, starting from tomorrow. The Met Department further predicts several spells of showers to occur in the western, central and Sabargama provinces and in the Galle and Matara districts. Furthermore, the forecast predicts showers or thundershowers to occur at a few places in the eastern and Uva provinces and in the Mullaitivu district in the evening or night.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The COVID vaccination drive continues amidst the Biden administration's pledge for more vaccines for Sri Lanka. The University of Sri Javadapura establishes rapid low-cost nanopore sequencing for the first time in Sri Lanka. The price of the domestic LPG cylinders to remain unchanged despite an increase in fuel prices. The Agriculture Minister proposes a new Fertilizer Act to replace the existing one. The no-confidence motion against the Minister of Energy handed over to the Speaker. Non-biodegradable lunch sheets to be banned. The US and Western allies impose new sanctions on Belarus. India and New Zealand frustrated again by weather as Day 4 is washed out at the World Test Championship final in Southampton. That concludes this afternoon's news broadcast.